Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Bunny Cakes and welcome to my channel for the first time if you're new here. Today I am going to be doing a book tag video and the tag is what makes me pick up a book. This tag was originally created over on Wonderfully Bookish. I will link her down below. And the first prompt is, do you judge a book by its cover? And I would say definitely yes, most of the time. Other times I will judge a book by recommendations from people, especially people who tend to read content I like, but often even people who tend to read genres I don't necessarily read, because you don't find anything new unless you reach out and look at new genres. And then of course there are other times where I will read the prompts, or not the prompts, the synopsis on the back or in the cover. But I would say a good deal of the time what makes me pick up a book initially is either a recommendation from someone, hype, or because I'm in the store or the library, or these days window shopping on Amazon, and the cover appeals to me for one reason or another. Prompt 2 is focusing on just the cover. What attracts you to pick it up? This is one of those more ethereal things, I think, because when I look at the books that I pick up for the first time primarily because of the cover, there are different things. Sometimes it's the way the cover's designed or the title. Sometimes it'll be the colors. Sometimes it's a mixture of the two. And it just varies so much between experiences. Like, the reason I ended up picking up the Riley Sager books is because they do have that bright color pop. All of them do. But also the cover, it focuses on the title, and there is a picture in the background, but they're simple. But also I like fantasy covers too. So like I have this book that you will have already seen by the time you see this from a book haul. So like this Neil Gaiman book. I like this fantasy floating flying ship kind of thing. Or like the Shannara book, the castle on the cover. But also both of these books have pleasing colors to me. So yeah, it varies. And sometimes it's just an in-the-moment thing, just like when you meet a person for the first time. Like there's sometimes, like when you're in a group of people, like at a party or another group event, something you can't put your finger on draws you to that specific person. So there's a lot, and that one's almost kind of hard to nail down. Number 3 is, do you read the synopsis first, or do you prefer to go in without knowing anything about the book? I tend to be a synopsis reader. That's usually how I get into a book. Though frequently if somebody's mentioned a book to me, or recommended it, I don't necessarily read the synopsis, but I also still kind of get the synopsis because the person recommending it to me will tell me a little bit about the book too. Number 4 is, do you have any auto-buy authors whose books you will always buy even without knowing anything about them? Definitely. Neil Gaiman is one. Stephen King is one. Terry Brooks is one. Riley Sager is definitely becoming one because I've read almost all of his books and I've really liked every single one of them. There is another author, she's less widely known. Her name is Cassie Dandridge Selleck. I have read one of her books, and I have her second book on my TBR. I just bought it. I have loved her books so much. She's not even typically in the genre of books that I read, but I will very likely buy every book she puts out. At least right now. So prompt number 5 is, are you more likely to pick up a book if it includes specific elements or themes, like LGBTQ plus, mental health representation, disability representation, etc.? I think so, yes. Now, I tend to gravitate towards horror anyway. So that's an element that I will definitely pick up a book. If it's in that genre, I'll at least look at it. Though, I do like books that try to represent mental health, in a good light. I do, and I like variety in my books, so if a book tells me that the main character is maybe somebody from a different culture, or somebody LGBTQ plus, or somebody with a disability, and it seems to present that person in a non-ableist light, I will totally look into it and see what it's about. Whether I actually fully read the book or not depends on other things, but because I'm trying to get more variety in my reading, yes, I do pick up books in those situations. And also, like, when it comes to books that have main characters in other cultures, that's how we learn. Because, in my opinion, reading lets us experience through empathy and through imagination a little bit of what life is like for the character. So if that character is something different from what we are, say a black character, or a Middle Eastern character, or a Chinese or Japanese character, it gives me a window into that culture that I wouldn't have through my own natural experience, because I'm clearly none of those things. So yeah, I will pick up books that give me learning experiences along with my escapism. Number 6 is, do you ever read a book that has generally negative reviews just to form your own opinion of it? Yeah, I definitely would. If the synopsis or something, or the genre sparks my interest, even if there are negative opinions about it, I will read those books. Like, I will read Bodice Rippers sometimes as palate cleansers, or I read the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles because it's my version of Twilight. Now, I don't particularly like the Twilight series, but I do recognize that the Anne Rice books are not terribly different. They're vampire fluff, but for me, they're less problematic. And also, beyond books like Dracula, Anne Rice's vampire books were my first real window into the world of vampires, so I have a special attachment, even though I do recognize that there are problematic themes in there, and there's also some stuff that's just cringy, regardless of my fandom for those books. The next prompt is, do you ever buy a book just because another booktuber or blogger has reviewed it or talked about it a lot? Yes. Yes. In fact, that's how I found Cassie Dandridge Selleck's books, because a booktuber was reading her first book, and I picked it up, and I loved it. That's how I got into The Handmaid's Tale, because booktubers were talking about it. And so many other books. The Underground Railroad by Colton Whitehead. And, oh, that book by Angie Thomas that I can't think of the name of at the moment. I know her sequel was on the come up, but I can't remember what the first one was called. They made it a movie. Anyway, this is that editing thing that I don't do, so I'll think of it later probably. But yeah, there are so many books that BookTube and book bloggers have exposed me to that I probably never would have read, and they never would have been on my radar otherwise. But I'm so thankful for that, because those books have all been books that I really, really enjoyed, and they've been among my favorite books for the years that I've read those books. And they've exposed me to authors that have become some of my favorite authors. When I think of who's your favorite author, I don't do top #1 authors most of the time, with the exception of, like, when I think of horror, I think of Stephen King. But I also think, to a lesser extent, of, like, Thomas Harris and Dean Koontz. I usually have, like, a top 10 or a top 5 of favorites. So when I think of, and that list mutates given my mood, but that list has also mutated because of books that I see hype about, because of BookTube and book bloggers and book Twitter and Bookstagram and all of that, and now Book Discord. So the next one is there anyone whose book recommendations you will generally always trust? Yes. In my personal life, when it comes to book recommendations, my fiance and I tend to have similar taste in books. So if he finds a book that he reads without me suggesting it to him and he likes it, then I will generally trust his opinion. His mom, my mother-in-law, Pygmy, we tend to like a lot of the same books as well. Not surprising, because she is a lot of where my fiance gets his taste. So I take book recommendations from her when she reads books that I haven't read first. And as far as, like, booktubers, I tend to like a lot of the same books as Peter Mon. So I take a lot of, when I see books on his booktube or on his vlog or whatever that he talks about, a lot of the time I'll look into those. And many times I've liked those books. I have almost forcefully taken a book recommendation from Which Kitten Reads, which I'm looking forward to. That forceful recommendation will have been discussed in my book haul that I'm posting before this video. But I tend to like the books that she talks about on her channel, so I would totally trust a recommendation from her, and the book recommendation that I have from her I will be adding to my TBR for next month. And there are several other booktubers that, when they make book recommendations or whatever, like on Twitter or something, that I do trust. And some of my personal friends, whose names I won't mention on here because they're not into social media like that, I make book recommendations to them, they make book recommendations to me, and that's how you grow as a reader, right? You take recommendations, and there are even times where I will take recommendations from, like, customers that I talk to when I'm working, or people I meet out in public. I tend to trust a lot of book recommendations. They mean more when they come from somebody who knows me, because that person has read this book and thought, oh my god, you will like this. I thought of you when I read it. But also, I like to take book recommendations from people who I don't necessarily know that well, because I think you learn a lot about people based on the books that they read and the music they listen to and the things they do to escape and relax. So it gives you a bit of a window into their soul to do that. So I kind of trust book recommendations from most people, but there are people who recommend books to me that I definitely know that I'm much more likely to like the book because that person thought of me personally when they made the recommendation. So that is the last prompt, and now it's on to tagging people. Yes, I'm going to tag Which Kitten Reads, Joe's Review Journal, and Knickknack's Corner for this book review video. And if I didn't edit that out, just imagine some montage music or whatever, or that SpongeBob One Eternity Later meme in there, because I don't have the editing skills to put that in there, but just pretend that's what was there the whole time. imagination. Anyway, that's all I have for this video today. I will link everybody who I mentioned as tags down below, as well as the original video for this book tag. And thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.